Hi everyone, I'm Tally, this is Farrell, and we are bored of it, and welcome to our top 10 two-player games of all time.
Yeah, so, updated for 2024. So I think actually made this top 10 list the first time round about 2 years ago. So we thought it was time to revisit and see if our tastes have changed and what our current top 10 two-player games are. And obviously, as a couple, we play a lot of games two players, so there's a special place in our heart for two-player games, which are two-player only, because obviously they're a finely crafted experience for us. Mm-hmm. So Tally's going to begin by telling you what our list was all those years ago.
Yeah, so then we can see if there's any new contenders that have come up
or
for
crazy
this time.
shifts.
Yes. Okay, so last time on Farrell's list, in at number 10, he had Radlands, and then Twilight Struggle was number 9, and then moving up towards number 1. Then Summoner Wars, 2nd edition, Undaunted Normandy, Mantis Falls, Star Wars Rebellion, Watergate, Polis, 1960, Making of the President, and then number 1 was Caper Europe.
Classic. What a terrific list.
Yeah, if you do say so yourself.
And I do.
Mine, in at number 10, I had Lawyer Up. At number 9, I had Polis. And then Watergate, Curious Cargo, Summoner Wars 2nd edition, Mantis Falls, 1960, The Making of the President, Star Wars Rebellion, Undaunted Normandy, and then I also had Caper Europe at number 1.
Classic. Classic Caper. Well, with that, we will move straight into our number 10s. Okay, so we start at the end with our number 10, and I will go first, and I don't have any honourable mentions this time, just a clean list. And my number 10 is a Reiner Knizia classic, I think something that's a little underappreciated, and that is Royal Visit. And this is, as I said, a little Reiner Knizia two-player only game. You have a nice little felt mat in front of you, one side pointed at you, the other side pointed at the other player. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to get the king to visit your chateau by playing cards to move him, and the other kind of pawns on the board. And all the pawns move in different ways or have different powers. And you kind of are drawing cards randomly and kind of deciding how to play with them. You know, do you want to move the jester towards you, which then makes cards wild? Or do you want to move the wizard, who then lets people warp to his spot so you can move people very far? It's just a lot of fun. It plays very quick. It's very kind of like intense but light. And everyone was shown has really enjoyed it. And we really enjoy it.
Yeah, and just to say also, we don't know each other's lists, so as we reveal them, they're a surprise to the other person. Yep, very good choice for number 10. My number 10 is, and you might be surprised,
Cape Europe.
It's actually Sail.
Sail?
Yeah, so Sail is a very small box, maybe this size, game, and it's a cooperative trick-taking game. And it's kind of set in the open ocean, I guess, and you're kind of just making tricks and doing the tricks so that you can maneuver a little ship in the right direction so that it avoids mountains and krakens and whatnot, right? And you have to get from one side of the board to the other to like complete the journey.
Yeah.
So it's very simple, but I think it deserves to be on the top 10 because, I don't know, it's just very cozy vibes. And we talk about this in all of our kind of list videos about how we select them. You select yours more methodically and scientifically.
I'm a scientist, yeah.
And I just go based on like pure gut feeling, to be honest. And I don't know, it just gives me a nice memories of being on holiday. We played it a lot when we went to Norway for my birthday. And it's just the perfect little game to take to the pub or whilst you're having a beer somewhere. I just think it's a nice twist on a familiar mechanic, which is trick-taking, right?
Yeah, so I actually don't... Well, sorry, I'm not surprised, actually. Okay. I think it's quite a neat little game.
Yeah.
So, moving to my number 9, that would be Star Wars Unlimited.
Ah, okay.
Which I'm sure is not going to sharpen your list, because this is one...
Couldn't possibly comment.
Well, I'm sure it won't be, because this is a game I actually played a lot on, mostly on holiday with a friend. We did a review of it, if you want to know, like, in depth. But it's basically a new kind of collectible trading card game based around Star Wars from Fantasy Flight Games. And we were given a review copy, just to say. But had a lot of fun with it, took it on holiday with a friend, and we played a lot in like the bar. We were skiing bar every night, and just, I have real good memories of it. I thought it was real cool, kind of 2-player, like I do something and then you do something, then I do something, and fight down to whittling away someone's health. It has a lot of cool stuff. It's obviously going to expand, I think, in the summer as a trading card game. But I just really enjoy what it's doing, and I'm interested to see what's coming. And just, it was a really neat little 30-minute kind of game that you play back to back to back.
Cool. Okay. So my number 9, and I feel like you might be surprised again, even though you weren't surprised at my number 10. My number 9 is Harrow County.
Yeah.
Yeah? No reaction? No? Okay.
Reaction.
Why
would I be surprised?
I thought that you would think that you like it more than me. I thought that maybe you wouldn't think that I would put it on my top 10 necessarily.
Fair enough.
Obviously, I really like the game, but I thought that you wouldn't think that I would put it on the top 10.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, how do you describe this mechanically? It's a kind of head-to-head tug of war type of thing, where you have different factions, I guess, with different sort of powers, and it's set in like a...
It's not even really tug of war, I guess. It's like asymmetric, because you're kind of... I mean, because, you're not fighting over the same thing unless you play like one way, but getting into the weeds. Yeah.
So, for example, the faction that I was playing as, I had to make storms all over the board so that I could... I was like ravaging the town, right?
Yeah.
I wanted to ravage the town, but you wanted to save the town, and I had to kind of, you have little, what were they called, the little minions that help you. You have a main character, and and you have to kind of haints. That's it. You have to move the haints in certain ways that can block your opponent from doing what they need to do. You needed to rescue the townsfolk, so you needed to create paths. I needed to block the paths and create links. Put storms down to the kind of houses so that I could suck them up. But it's something that's fairly new in our collection, but I just think it's pretty novel in what it does. I think it's very... Thematic's maybe the wrong word, but it has a lot of like humor in the characters, and it's whimsical, and I just, the vibe of it I think is like pretty cool. And there's a giant tree which is in the lid of the box, and to do a combat you basically like throw cubes into the tree and then they get spit out, which is a bit gimmicky, but it's a bit of fun, right? And it looks quite cool on the table. So I think it's just a lot of like fun to play.
Yeah, Harrow County is a really cool game. And I think just to clarify with Harrow County, is that we've kind of, it's technically 2 to 3 players or 4 with the expansion, but I feel like we can include it on this list because you play through scenarios, and you can play different scenarios, and generally they're just like an increasing complexity of the rules. But then the final scenario is introducing a 3rd player. So technically kind of most of the way you'll ever play it is 2-player, and then you move to 3-player because you're supposed to know how to play when you get to that. But I kind of think that's a real tricky concept to play a 2-player only game and then like suddenly find a 3rd person who also knows it. Yeah. So I would like to do it, but I think this is, if you're getting it, unless you like, it is primarily a 2-player game, and especially because so many scenarios of it are 2-player only. So I think it's allowed on the list. Yeah. Okay, so then let's go to number 8. So I have picked Polis as my number 8. And actually, this probably deserves to be higher, but it's just the fact we haven't played it in quite a long time. So obviously, my memories are more hazy of it, and I guess you could argue that we haven't got it to the table, so it pushes it down. But Polis is a very good 2-player game. It's kind of Athens versus Sparta. like the kind of Peloponnesian conflicts. Each player takes a side. It's kind of like it's kind of a bit of like an economic game in some ways. There's a bit of combat. There's like a bit of economics. There's taking over different areas, like area control. But it's just this like very tight, interesting, quite novel to play a game. And we have a review of it if you want to know more. But I can't really remember playing anything quite like it. And I think it's something that's gone very far under the radar that deserves a lot more attention. Yeah. And it also has an absolutely wonderful production of, I think, the current version, because I think it's the second edition maybe, with, you know, dual layer player boards and lovely components.
That's like a highlight I remember in my mind.
Yeah,
is like how
the
nice
art is great.
The player boards are.
But if you want like a kind of tight, tense, like economic area control Euro, you know, you got your 2 hours. If you make a mistake, it might come back and haunt you, that kind of thing, something mean, then Polis is for you.
Yeah, but it's not mean in terms of like combat and like it's just one missing resource and your whole plan can come like crumbling down basically. Yeah, it's really good.
I remember the first game we played, I made like a error because I didn't obviously understand the shape of the game, and it's just like I was done basically.
Collapsed.
Yeah, for the rest of the game.
Okay, so my number 8 is Star Wars Rebellion, not Unlimited. So that was on my list last time. So this is, a Star Wars themed game where it's the Empire versus the Rebels. And it's...
Classic.
The Rebels are basically hidden on a planet. So the board is all of the planets from the universe. And you are hidden on one as the Rebels, and it's the Empire's job to find where they are, basically. So you need to kind of take control of the planet so that you can build more combat units, let's say, and then all the while you're trying to whittle down and deduce on what planet you think they could be on. So there's some little like side quests or missions that can help the Empire whittle that down. And, you know, as the Rebels, actually you've played as the Rebels a lot more than me. I usually play as the Empire. What are like the little mechanics
basically, so the Rebels win by, there's like a time counter counting down, and the Rebels win when it meets like this other marker, and that marker is they do little sabotage missions, they do little Rebel stuff, and that can make that marker move, so bring the end of a game quicker.
That's it, yeah, exactly. But it's a big few hours game, but it always just feels so epic.
It does.
Obviously it's a race or a race to find them if you're the Empire, or make the game go quicker if you're the Rebels. So it just has a really fun, tense feeling, and the actual gameplay and like the missions that you do, it's interesting because you have to decide which leaders you're sending out in a given turn, and figuring out there's an element of uncertainty because you kind of can send a leader out, but then the opponent can defend themselves and you never know what's going to happen. So it's more, random's the wrong word, but it's an epic game where you never really know what might happen, right? But there is some strategy in like how you go about the side missions, and do you want to lean into that side or just try and deduce the planet. So good fun. Yeah,
it's a good game. There's a lot of, I really like the way, because somebody will send a leader out, but then you can send a leader to counter them. You kind of like roll some dice to see who wins. And so there's a really nice back and forth. And do I want to use this leader for a mission, or do I want to block them from doing that mission? And there's like a good rhythm, and it's a lot of fun. So number 7 is Radlands for me. And this has gone up a little bit. And that is primarily because of a very tense, sweaty game we had, like not recently, but recently-ish.
Yeah.
Where I think we played 2 or 3 back to back. We just like got out randomly, like late in the evening, and it was just like so tense and so fun. So Radlands is like a post-apocalyptic, like wastelands type little card game. So it kind of invokes like a little bit of what I was saying about Star Wars Unlimited. It feels like a trading card game, but it's just all in one box. It's just a 2-player head-to-head kind of, skirmish type, card-driven combat type thing. where you have 3 bases and your enemy wants to destroy all 3 of your bases. Whoever does that first wins, but you kind of build rows of people in front of them, and then that blocks the bases from being hit. And yeah, there's a lot of these classic trading card game tropes, but it's just very tense, like very tight economy, terrific artwork and productions from Roxley Games, so they always have that. But yeah, it just I think is a really great, if you want that type of thing, like it's basically frustration in a box.
I was going to say a few things make my blood boil more, actually.
Yeah.
It's infuriating.
Pretty much anything you do will significantly piss off your opponent.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
Badlands.
It's good, but extremely annoying. My number 7 is Summoner Wars, 2nd edition. So I think it's dropped maybe 1 place since last time. But I think that's just because we haven't got it out in a while. So the memories of it have faded a little bit. But it's essentially a card-driven game, and it's a bit like chess in a way, because you have your cards and your different kind of characters or units, let's say, on the board. And you need to basically get to the other person's leader unit. But you can deploy units to kind of block, but they can move in certain ways and do certain things. Some have different ranges so that you can attack a bit further along. But it's essentially about moving your cards, which are your units, around the board so that you can get to the leader. But each of the units will have some different powers that you can employ to try and do that and get rid of and eliminate the opponent's cards, basically. It's very simple. It's just a board and some cards, but there's a lot of different, I don't want to say factions again. What would you call that?
Yeah,
groups, factions that you can play with. So there's a lot of variety, and they might lean into different things. Like
they feel different.
Yeah, one will be, let's just say, like ice people that might like freeze people, or I don't know, just different themes of the characters. So yeah, how you go about getting to the leader could be different pack to pack, basically. And I was just really pleasantly surprised when we played it. I definitely judged it hard by its cover, but then had,
as you're wont to do.
Yeah,
won't be the first game on the list that comes up. Absolutely,
but yeah, it's good fun, and that can be very tense as well.
Yeah, Summoner Wars is great, and I think if that's your kind of thing, it's also well supported. I think we just have there's different sets you can get. We have a set with like 6 faction decks, but you can. There's a lot of factions that are being released, so you can buy more. It's quite expandable. There's a lot of content, so it's also something that you can, if you want that kind of thing, dive into, play tournaments of. I'm sure they're going on, so it's well supported. But a good game. My number 6 is one we've already heard, and that is Sail. Okay. The little 2-player trick-taking cooperative game that you already mentioned.
Yeah.
I like it a lot.
I'm surprised it's so high on your list, actually, if at all. Like, I know that you like it, but yeah, I just didn't know whether you would make the list.
Just think it's quite a nice design, being a trick taker, but for 2 players and cooperative. I think that's quite cool. I think it's very interesting because you're you're not really allowed to talk while you play, so there's a lot of kind of doing mental teamwork.
Non-verbal communication. Not even signs, but even psychic.
Yeah, exactly. So, and you're like playing a card if you're leading the trick face up, and you're trying to tell your partner something about what they should play, and it's just all very interesting. It's very fun to go through different levels and get harder and harder. And like you said about playing on holiday, I played it a lot on holiday. I think I've only played it on holiday because I took it skiing with me as well, played it there, introduced it to my friend, had a great time playing it. So yeah, I just think it's a really great little package, very small box, easy to transport. So yeah, my number 6.
Great game. My number 6 is Mantis Falls, and this was on my list last time as well. We unfortunately haven't played it in a while, but as I was thinking about my list, part of my waiting, let's say, was how much do I crave to play it again or miss it if we haven't played it in a while, and that was quite up there. But Mantis Falls is basically a social deception game, which is it's primarily for 2 people. You can play as 3, but we definitely class it more as a 2-player game because it's basically a suboptimal experience when you add in the 3rd person. One person always has to take the turn out, basically. So it's definitely not adding anything. It's actually taking something away. So definitely best played 2-player. I just think it has a great theming. It's kind of set in almost like Twilight Zone-y, but it's not supernatural or anything. But that's the vibe it gives me. You're basically escaping a town because you've witnessed a murder. Someone's done a murder, and you've witnessed it. So someone will play as the witness, and someone will play as the kind of hitman that needs to take them out. Or there could be 2 witnesses. But you have a hidden role, right? So you don't know that. So you don't know if the other player is trying to also escape and help you escape the town, or whether they are just playing along and actually plan to off you, basically. So it's about moving along steps on a path, and you play different cards which do different things that allow you to maybe move along the path quicker or do something to your opponent to try and maybe figure out who you think they are. So yeah, I just think this is very novel, unique, that it's a social deception game for 2 players. And I personally think that it's super, super well done, and commend the designers for coming up with that. It's a obviously difficult genre for a lower player count.
Yeah, I think it's really impressive how they just made a really fun and interesting and innovative 2-player social kind of deception game. I really like it. I don't think it's made it onto my list because we haven't played it that much, and I think it's just kind of been pushed off a bit. But it's probably the game that I would regret most not having on my list now that we're talking about it. So I do really, really like it. I think it was in my top 10 games the year it came out. I think it's a really brilliant experience, and it's very interesting because on one level you kind of have the social deception, but then the more you play, the more you learn the cards, and it becomes like a really kind of a deeper way to play, and kind of strategies emerge, and it's just very interesting.
Yeah, you know what cards might come later, right, or what could be played against you, so you have to do that accordingly. But this is very thematic. We like to play it with like lights dim, candles on, maybe more in the winter, and get some Twin Peaks music on just to set the vibe.
Yeah, so my number 5 is 1960, Making of a President. And this is a kind of GMT Twilight Struggle-esque game. You have 2 players pitted against each other. They kind of have a hand of cards each round, and they're playing cards either for the actions on them or the points. And if you play, they're kind of assigned to either player. And if you play a card with your opponent's action on it, they get to take it, but you get the points. So there's a lot of tension. It's very tough because a lot of things that you do, everything you do is probably bad for your opponent, but then some things you do can be good for your opponent, which is even worse. And I just think it has a really cool, so it kind of has all that, and you've probably played that type of game before, and you know why it's good, because of the tension, the back and forth. But what I really like about this one is it's probably like the most fun out of all those, and I have a lot of time for the theme. It's set during the 1960 presidential election, Nixon versus Kennedy, and you're campaigning across America, and you win by winning the presidency. So you're collecting votes in states in this area of control. I just think it's really cool. It's like bombastic. It's fun. It's kind of dramatic, more so than any of the other GMT games I've played.
It's also like relatively simple in a way. You're mostly kind of taking cubes on and off the different states, which represent if you have the power or not.
Yeah.
So obviously not that it's super complex, but the depth of it comes from how you do that and how you go about it, basically. So I think that's pretty nice as well. It doesn't feel as intimidating maybe as some of the others.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so my number 5 is Polis.
Polis, nice.
Yeah, so you already talked about it. But again, I was really thinking about which games do I really want to get out after looking at all of that, our two-player collection. And I really, really want to play this again. It's been a really long time. Everything, like you said, same reasons for me, like great production, is very mean, but in the best way. Yeah, just a great game, and I agree with all your points.
Yeah. So with that, let's move into the top half and get really excited about the terrific games, since all those games are trash now. They're in the bottom half.
Not worth the paper they're written on.
Exactly. My number 4 is, again, one we've already heard on this list, and it is Star Wars Rebellion.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a brilliant game. Obviously, it's extremely popular. I think it's in the top 20 board games of all time on BGG. And you talked a lot about why it's so great. You know, it's the asymmetry, the feeling of tension and being hidden as the rebels, the power of the Empire and kind of like marching planet to planet and kicking down the door. There's just a lot of fun, a lot of tension, you know, a lot of drama. Lets you reinvent Star Wars and tell a new story with the kind of familiar faces. And it's just probably the most epic, well, one of them, you know, top 5 epic 2-player experiences you can have. And I know I showed this to, we pretty much just played together, but you're away, and I showed it to a friend. And I think he was surprised by like how epic a 2-player game could be after playing it. And that was a lot of fun. So yeah, Star Wars Rebellion.
Okay, my number 4 is 1960, The Making of a President. Again, for all the reasons pretty much that you said. I don't know if I have too much to add there. But yeah, I just love the production of it. It looks really cool on the table, just to add that on. It's very visual and pleasing, and having
a lot of red and blue.
Yeah, having the map of the US, and yeah, like I said, it just doesn't feel as intimidating as some of the other games in the same genre to me. But I think it's because of the theme and the way it looks, it like lifts off the table for me a lot more than say like Twilight Struggle, which just seems a bit like flat almost. So yeah, great game, and another one I'm thinking about when we can next play it.
Yeah. So number 3, and we're now crossing over all the time, except this is quite a big gulf from where you put it to where I put it.
Okay.
And my number 3 is Harrow County.
Okay, yeah, I'm not surprised by that. You were very enamored with it.
Yeah, I think Harrow County, so we did mention before, but it's from, I think they're called Off the Page games, because they basically create board games that are based on graphic novels. So Mind Management is their first game, and obviously that was wildly popular. Harrow County is the second. I think they have a third on Kickstarter now. So this has been, I haven't really seen anything about it. I've barely seen anyone talk about it. We did a review of it, and I think people weren't that interested. It didn't get a lot of views, but I think it's really brilliant. I think when they create games, they do very interesting things. You know, there's a reason Mind Management was so popular.
Yeah.
I just think it's really cool. So, as you're kind of saying, it's like head-to-head kind of area control. There's like a lot of cool tactility because you can race around the map, upgrading yourself to be able to do more. But the players kind of upgrade themselves in different ways. Like you always played the family, and they kind of have like a bag building mechanism. I have a completely different mechanism. And then there's also like a third faction that you can swap in for one of them once you get the full game going. And I think it was a delight to play like by scenario to scenario, learning the rules. And then when you kind of unlock all the rules and have it, you get this really rich, full experience that I think makes it much more interesting.
Yeah.
And I think the art, the components, brilliant, storage, brilliant. So I've just had a lot of fun playing it.
Fair enough. My number 3 is, again, something that we've heard about before, but it's Royal Visit.
3.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know, yeah.
That I am surprised by.
I just think it does its job so well. It just fits the space. So sometimes when we have people over, one of us will need to go out and walk the dogs in the middle of a gaming session that lasts all day. And I just love to get Royal Visit out whilst,
and
you're out somewhere.
Anywhere near done with it when I get back.
Yeah, but, well, it depends. That's because you have to explain it to someone new, usually. But I just think it fits that space so nicely. A game that plays in 15, 20, 30 minutes maybe. I think it looks visually beautiful. It has a lovely... The board is a cloth mat that you roll out. And I think, typical of running Knizia, the game seems simple in a way. And then once you play, you uncover more depth and strategy. Yeah. And I just think it's, a lovely little game that really fills that gap for me. I would happily play that at any time. I would never turn down a game. So I think that's why it's so high for me, because I just have a good feeling around it.
That's fair enough. I reckon you've justified it.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, I know for number 1 and 2 that I'm almost certain we're going to have the same.
I was just thinking,
1 and 2.
Yeah, it must be the same ones.
But it's what order they're going to come in.
Yeah.
So what I say next might shock you. My number 2, dropping an entire 1 spot, is KP Europe.
Mm-hmm. Okay, then I know what your number 1 is.
Yeah. So KP Europe is an absolutely terrific 2-player kind of head-to-head, what do you call it? Like tug of war. Yeah. I couldn't remember the name. So it's a tug of war game. You're playing cards to locations, and you're playing cards on top of those cards to kind of move trackers your way or to take things from the location. And you're trying to win these locations because then you get points, but you can also get points for the cards you've played. And it's kind of set around your competing teams of thieves, stealing stuff around Europe. And each city has kind of some different cards you put into the deck, and that will change up the kind of mechanisms of gameplay. It's such a terrific, neat little box. It's one of our most played games. We have a playthrough of it. We have a review of it. I think they even quote us on the website of Keymaster Games.
We do talk about it a lot. Regular viewers of this channel must be sick to the back teeth of hearing about KP Europe.
But there is almost no better 2-player game for the punch it gives you in a 15-minute play session. And I've just never got bored of playing it. Yeah,
I love the vibe and the art and the whole caper vibes, I guess.
Caper vibes,
but I think it really lifts off the cards and very charismatic, I guess.
Beautiful production, beautiful artwork.
Yeah. Okay, so my number 2 is Undaunted.
Yeah.
Did you know that I would put it at number 2?
I thought you probably would. I didn't think you would budge on KP Europe.
Yeah, by proxy then, I guess, spoiler alert, what my number 1 is.
Well, same for me.
Can I say the whole Undaunted system?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to choose the whole Undaunted system. If I really had to...
Because it's my number 1.
Okay, good. So we're agreed on that. If I really had to pick one from the series, then I probably would pick Undaunted Stalingrad, which is the campaign version. But yeah, Undaunted is a deck management, hand management, combat game set in some kind of historical war event.
Some kind of historical.
Some kind of various ones. For the different games. There's Undaunted Normandy, Undaunted North Africa.
Undaunted Revolutionary War. You said some kind of historical...
Get on that.
Some sort of historical war event.
Yeah. And the cards in your hand basically represent the units on the board, and you can only take 4 into your hand at a time, and you basically play them to action them. But the rifleman might be able to move or attack, or you might have a scout that can go and scout new locations, or they can also attack but with less force. So each unit can do different actions, but you have to play what's in your hand at any given time. So it's very strategic. I honestly feel like I'm a real war general when I'm playing it, because you really do have to scan the field. Each side will usually have like a different objective. It can be the same one, like get to the...
Yeah, they get more asymmetric in the later games.
Yeah, so it could be in North Africa, for example, a lot of it is about escaping in a vehicle, for example, whereas the other one might have to like take out all the riflemen or something like this, or it could be the same objective. But you really have to scan it. I'm going to hold back and I'm going to be defensive and try and pick them off, or I'm just going to go right in there and try as fast as I can to meet the objective point. And it's very simple. You're picking up cards, playing them, but the strategy and the way that you have to think about things is just excellent.
Yeah, so I agree. That's my number one. And I just think the system is so robust. It gives you so many experiences. You can never beat the decision and the tension it gives you and the kind of mental load of having the 4 cards and having to get rid of one of them to bid for who goes first to play the rest of your cards.
So tough.
And that's always such a tough and interesting decision, like round after round after round. They've experimented in a lot of different things across the series. We did a buyer's guide kind of explaining all the ones that are out now that you can check out if you want to see that. But I think this comes from when we last did this list, we'd only played a few games of Undaunted. I think it made both our lists, Normandy, the first game. And then in preparation for the buyer's guide last year, we played like 40 games of Undaunted across like all the games. So obviously we've played it that much. We want to play it more. There's another game coming out later this year. Very excited.
Nice.
So yeah, and then obviously your number one is Cape of Europe.
Yes, so it's Cape of Europe for all the reasons that you said. I think I just have to put Undaunted at number 2, because as much as I love it, it can be quite stressful, whereas Cape of Europe is more light and fun, let's say. So that's just why I stuck with Cape of Europe at number 1, just because it can be pretty tense in Undaunted, and
Yeah, it can be.
Maybe had 1 or 2 like very near fallings out, haven't we, over Undaunted?
Yeah, specifically Stalingrad, your favourite.
Exactly, yeah. But it's obviously there's more to it in a way. Yeah. It's a heavier game, even though it's not like a super heavy game. But again, I go on feelings around a game, and Cape of Europe is just the one that just makes me happiest, I guess.
Yes, that's fair enough. It was very close to me. I just think, Undaunted kind of gets to cheat because it has a system rather than a singular game. If I had to put a singular Undaunted, then it'll probably be the other way around. But overall, it gets the first place.
Yep.
So that was our top 10 two-player games as of 2024. We hope it was entertaining. We'd love to know what yours are, or who had the best list, as always. And with that, we would really appreciate if you subscribe if you're not already. It really helps us grow the channel. And we are happy to take any questions you have about the list or the games. Check out our videos on these games, and we'll see you next time. See ya.
Bye.